Gotta get my caffeination in. Today's video is going to be about just makeup for professional women. If you happen to be trans or femme or non-binary and wear makeup, I'll just go into some tips and tricks that I use every day to kind of have a professional look at work. Keeping in mind that I do have pigmentation under my eyes, around my upper lip and lower lip, chin, and I have a few blemishes throughout my face. So let's go into it. Okay, so step one for me is doing my skincare. I already did all of my skincare. If you guys would like a separate video on my skincare, please go ahead and give this a thumbs up and tag me in a comment below. But the foundations that I'm going to be using today are about a medium, it can be worked to look like a medium full coverage. So I'm using the Origins Pretty in Bloom foundation and the NARS Sheer Glow foundation. These two, this one's a little warm for me, this one's a little cool for me, so when I mix them together, they're perfect. First, I will take a little bit of my NARS Sheer Glow and I'll mix it with the moisturizer I have on. And the point being is you want to have a nice kind of moisturized base so that your makeup looks kind of, you know, skin-like. Again, this is just the way I do my makeup. I know some people love like a full glam, like matte coverage, but I just like to work it into my face, my neck, and my chest, and just pat everything in. So that just kind of lays down a tint. So for me, I'll walk you through these kind of steps that I do as we go along. So my first step is just mixing my foundation with a little bit of my moisturizer to get like a nice, even, moisturized, light layer of pigment. I do this because I don't want full coverage all over my face. I want to pinpoint the spots where I need coverage, and the point of this is to have the coverage where you need it, but also to look, you know, natural and have kind of a dewier skin, a more natural skin, but just concealing where you want. I've had a couple people ask me, you know, how do you make your face not look like a mask? Because I have so much pigment, or I have so much facial hair, I have so much, you know, things that I want to cover up. Always, I say always use like a concealer or a foundation and pinpoint. So that's why I put my lotion and my foundation mixture on first. So now that that is on, I'm going to color correct. This is an old trick. Drag queens have been doing this for years. You can take, depending on your skin tone, like I'm using the Lancome Matte Shaker in the color New Devotion. It's like a peachy orange color, and this is matte, which is important. So if you don't have a color corrector, I mean, they sell many color correctors out there, but if you don't have a color corrector or you don't want to spend money on buying just a color corrector, if you have, for lighter skin tones, like a peachy matte lipstick, or for like medium skin tones, you can go for more an orange, like a true orange. For darker skin tones, you can even go for like a darker red orange. So what I do, I like a matte formula because that is going to stay on. The reason I like this is that it's matte, but it's flexible and it's breathable. It's not gonna cake down, which is important for my type of makeup that I do, because I don't want to look cakey, I don't want to look like super matte. I want to have spots on my face where I don't have pigmentation or I don't have a lot of facial hair. I want that to kind of come through and look like a more natural, radiant face, so it doesn't look like I have a mask on, just going for all the way full coverage. Again, some people like that. Personally, it's not my thing. So I'm going to shake that matte lipstick up. I'm not going to put this directly on my face. I'm going to put this on the back of my hand because I don't want to, you know, I always do this like for my lips, I'll put it on the back of my hand, and for my eyes and face, I'll put it on the back of my hand just because I don't want to contaminate it. So I'll just take whatever that color is here and apply, and as you can see, it's kind of sheer too, which I like. And just apply it to the areas that I have darker pigment, kind of that purpley color pigment, or like facial hair, that kind of blue undertone, and this kind of will offset that. If you have like a more severe undertone, as you can see, this is fairly matte. It's just gonna be kind of subtle. You can go for something that's a little more pigmented than this. So like a cream matte lipstick. The formula that I'm using is like glossy, or kind of has like a gel consistency. So I just go in to the areas that I have pigment, or like where my facial hair kind of tends to show up throughout the day. Like typically, since I've had laser done so many times, I really only get hair on my chin and like the corners of my mouth and right under my nose. So I'll put that there. And then I'm gonna let that dry just a bit, and then I'm gonna go back in with another layer on the areas that I need it. So I'll go on my chin just for a little bit of extra color correction, around my mouth here, and just under my nose. And again, you can see that I don't go for like a full-on color correction. For color correction, it's really just bouncing off or absorbing light with the color you choose underneath it, so, or underneath your foundation. Okay, so once that color corrector is set, you want to powder it just a little bit. If you have oilier skin, you can go in a little heavier with the powder. I do not. I have dry skin, so if I powder too much, I'm gonna look dry. So I'm just going to use my Marc Jacobs Finish Line powder and a Sephora Rouge brush. Any kind of denser powder brush is going to work just fine. So I'm going to dip that in and just powder the areas that I put the color corrector on. And if you have oilier skin, you can kind of just take this all the way through the T-zone, and that will help the foundation grab on, and you'll actually use less product too. That's a good old Jackie Aina trick. If you don't set the color corrector, often it will bleed through your concealer or foundation and leave an orange tint, and that's definitely not what you want. Once that is done, I'll just take my damp beauty blender and just gently pat that in. Because I already moisturized and have a little bit of foundation on, I like to just go and pat this in so that when we do apply foundation, it's seamless. So time for foundation and caffeination. So I'm gonna take the Pretty in Bloom by Origin in the color Cool Light, which I am not cool, but this was a gift from Danny, so I don't want to waste it. And I'm going to take the NARS Sheer Glow Foundation in the color Fiji, which is a little warmer for me, which I tend to be on the warm side, but because I'm so light right now, I go more neutral in the winter. I mixed both my Origins In Bloom foundation and my NARS Sheer Glow foundation on just a little dish. You can use like the jar lid or a little plate. I have a little espresso plate that I use. Mixed. What I'll do is I'll just go in first with just the kind of smaller side. This is an Eco Tool sponge. I like these just because they're a little bouncier than the Beauty Blender. So I'll take that kind of smaller flat side, just dip it in, and then go into the areas first where I want the most coverage. So on my chin. And remember, you can layer foundation. You can always go back in for more layers where you need more coverage. So again, it's about building coverage where you need it and letting your skin kind of show off or breathe where you want to look more natural and have less of that like mask appearance. So I'll go in on my lip. And then right in my under eye area, because that's where I tend to have quite a bit of darkness. So just blend all of that out. This In Bloom foundation is new to me, so I've been kind of trialing it. I've been mixing it with the Sheer Glow, which is like one of my Ride or Die foundations. I don't know if that is the reason it's performing so well, or if it's the actual In Bloom. I do like the In Bloom because it has an SPF, which I'm all about the SPF, and it has just a slight scent. I'm not huge on the scent, but apparently there's a whole story about how they collected roses from perfumiers in Paris and they, whatever, I don't know, but I'm not a huge scent person. But I do really like the finish. It's a medium coverage, kind of a satin, dewy, in between kind of finish, and I really like that. If you powder underneath like I just did, it tends to grip a little bit better, and it takes that dewiness to a more satin or skin-like finish. Kind of built up coverage in the center of my face. We'll come back to these areas, but I'm just gonna go in with my sponge and get the rest of my face. And I'm going pretty light on these areas. Again, try to only put coverage where you need it. Because for me, it's really, it really is, if you have, you know, good skincare and, you know, want to highlight certain parts of your skin, then go for it. I think, why not? Just because you have texture on one portion of your face does not mean that you have to completely cover up all of your face. I'm gonna go into my 5 head here, and I always just blend it into my hairline. And then I'll just kind of blend everything in. Don't forget your neck. You always want to get your neck. I even go to the back of my neck because sometimes I'll pull my hair up at work. Just so you have, you know, kind of the same tone all the way around. And you can even get like your ears. I'm gonna go into just whatever is left of my foundation and just hit those areas one more time that I want a little extra coverage. So for me, it tends to be right here on the edge of my chin, at the corners of my mouth, under my nose, under my nose here. And then I have just a little bit of pigmentation here that I'll cover up just with whatever is left. So again, we're just building coverage in the areas that we need it. Here. And depending on your skin type, you can use whatever foundations work for your skin. I need something that is a little more dewy or has a satin finish to it. I have drier skin and I tend to get texture throughout kind of my nose and under eyes and then on my chin. I find that having a really matte finish for me highlights the texture on my face. So I go for something dewier or satin finish, and then I powder those areas that I have a little texture, and throughout the day it kind of just looks seamless and skin-like. So that's what I recommend for people who have a little bit of texture, because then you have that kind of that glowiness that can reflect that really harsh texture look. If you guys want something more full coverage, more matte, go check out Scars to Stars Beauty, Danny, who's my bestie. She does a lot more matte full coverage foundation. I go on the more kind of dewy satin side of foundation. So next up is concealer. I like to mix my concealers again. Like I mix my foundation, I like to mix my concealer. So the first concealer I use is the Ilia True Skin Serum Concealer. And that is that one. I don't know if you can see that there. And then the other one I use is the IT Cosmetics Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer. This one is way full coverage. It's waterproof and it claims to be anti-aging. I don't know how much I believe that, but it is very full coverage, but it's really creamy, so you have to powder this down. So the Ilia tends to have a little bit of a drier consistency and it's not as full coverage, so that's why I mix them. So I just take a little bit of the concealer, I put it on the back of my hand, I mix them, and then I dot it where I need that coverage or that brightness. So I'll take it right here in the corner of my eyes. I'll take it a little bit down the nose. So for people who are trans or, you know, non-binary or femme, but were born, you know, assigned male, sometimes we have this little brow ridge here. I'm not sure if you can see, but I do have a little bit of ridging in my brow. So what I like to do is take a little bit of concealer and pop it right here in between my eyebrows to lighten that area, because it tends to look like I have a contour there because that ridge is there, or a shadow. So I just take that concealer, that little brightness here, and kind of try to retroact that natural contour that's there. And then I'll go under my nose, corners of my mouth, and then course, my chin. And because this is lighter, it's gonna bring all of these parts forward. If you don't like a certain feature, you can go for a concealer that's your skin color. For me, I like to bring the center of my face forward just to highlight those features. And then I'm just gonna bring a little bit of that concealer down and out. And then whatever is left over, I'm gonna take under my brows and on my eyelids. Again, I'm not a professional makeup artist, but this works for me. And I hope it works for you too. So, because these concealers are so creamy, I wanna let them just sit for a little bit and dry down just a bit. So this is a time where you can just be on your phone, do whatever. For me, I am a beverage freak, so I have my latte here, I have my emergency, and water. So I let it sit for a good 5-10 minutes. Okay, so now that it's been on there for about 7 minutes, I'm gonna take the end of my sponge that I use to apply my foundation, get all of the excess of the concealer off on my hand, and then go in first with the areas that I want the most coverage. Important when you have a lot of product on, it's gonna lay more product down. So for me, areas I need the most coverage are my chin and my lip. So I'll first go into my chin and just pat, pat, pat. Okay, you see how nice that blends? So I really like to do that, especially on the chin and upper lip, because this sponge has excess foundation on it. So it's nice because it kind of blends those two colors together really nicely, and it doesn't highlight it so much, because I kind of want the highlight to be in the center of my face. So I'm gonna go now on my under eyes. And then lastly, I wanted to highlight this ridge here and the bridge of my nose the most, because I want to really take that area that I have that natural contour and bring it forward to make it look like it doesn't have a contour. So I just take that sponge again and just tap lightly. Everywhere else I like to get a good press and pretty, hard, but here just go light. And if you get this line straight enough, it will kind of help, highlight that bridge of your nose and make your nose look thinner if that's what you want. Okay, so that is concealer blended out. Next, I'm gonna move to powdering kind of the center of my face, and then cream products for kind of the outer edges of my face here. So now I'm going to powder the center of my face where I have that concealer, because I want that to sit in, let that moisture kind of absorb that powder a little bit. And then I'll take some cream products and do some highlighting on the areas that I didn't put so much coverage on. So this is really a really important part of having your skin look natural, even though you do have quite a bit of coverage on the areas like my chin, my lip, and around my nose and eyes. So as a trans woman, often we have texture around our mouths, on our chin, sometimes throughout our jawline, cheeks. So concentrate the coverage on that area. You can of course apply powder. Danny has a really cool trick for baking those areas that need more coverage, because that can kind of unify the texture a little bit. And then what I recommend is the areas that you don't need coverage, those are the areas that you want to kind of bring forward that more natural texture of your skin. So cream highlight, cream blush, a little bit of a powder highlight, powder blush, and then that will kind of make your skin look a little bit more natural and make you look less like you're wearing a mask of makeup, but you're just really highlighting the areas where you like your quality of skin or the type of skin you have. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back in with that Marc Jacobs Finish Line powder and that Sephora Rouge brush that I have. I'm just gonna tap that in. I'm gonna go back in the areas where I concealed. And then once I have powdered those areas, I'll just go back again with that kind of clean end of the sponge that's still a little damp, and just lightly press that in. For me, I don't like to have a super matte finish, so going back in with that sponge can kind of help moisturize that powder, blend in the powder and the cream together and marry that so it looks a little more natural. So now let's go in with a cream highlighter. Today I'm using the RMS Beauty Magic Luminizer. This is a cream highlighter from RMS Beauty. They're a clean brand. So this is oil-based, so it can kind of break up foundation if you aren't careful with applying it. So what I do is I take my finger, I just tap it, rub it on the back of my hand to get it really nice and warm, and then go back in with a little more and again rub it. And then I'll take whatever residual is left and just bring this on the high points of my cheek. And really take your time, pat softly. And again, you don't want to put this on areas that have texture because that sheen, that extra sheen, will emphasize the texture in that area. So then I'll just put that on my other cheek. For me, I just can't get enough highlighter. Highlighter and blush are my two favorite things, so I really take my time. I'll take a little bit just on my finger here and tap it under my brow, just kind of where that arch starts to happen, and then I'll just smooth it out. Again, you can use highlighting and contouring as a way to hide and highlight features that you like and don't like. So we talked about that brow ridge I have and how that can look like a contour and make me look a little more kind of angry. So I'm gonna go in with that highlight and just place it right on that area where I get a little bit of a contour. And that will reflect light and make it look more of kind of a space that's coming out. And then I'll take whatever's left on my finger and run it down my nose. And again, we're not going for full glamour. We're not going for, you know, going out. This is a makeup for, you know, everyday working people who are going to meetings, who are in the boardroom, who are nurses, who are, you know, secretaries, who are, you know, working professionals, and who necessarily can't do full glam every day or don't want to do full glam every day. I would, but you know, sometimes I just don't have time. And once you get this routine down, like this on a normal day, when I'm not talking through it, would take me like 10, 15 minutes. And then I'll take a little bit of that highlighter just right above my brow. Just again, to highlight areas, because that kind of brings that brow up too, which I like. And if you want, you can take just a tiny tap of that highlighter in the inner corners. I know some people will highlight the top of their lip or their chin. I don't do that because that's where I have texture. So I'm gonna choose to not highlight that area and emphasize that texture. Okay, so now that highlight's done, we will move on to blush. Blush, I think, is a very personal thing. Some people like matte blush, some people like satin blush, some people like blush with a sheen or sparkle. I would say if you like any of those things, a really great product to buy is the Cover FX blush duos. I have the Cover FX Monochromatic blush duo in Soft Peach. This is a really nice product because you have the side where you can highlight or use it to create sheen and create that kind of nice natural skin texture. And you have this matte side, so if you want a more of a pop of color but you don't necessarily want to emphasize a texture on your face, the matte side would be great. I like to use both. So I have more texture kind of here in the center of my face. So I apply that blush, the matte blush, kind of towards the center, and then I'll take that shinier blush or the highlighting blush and I'll bring that kind of back towards that and marry my highlight and my blush together. So that's what we'll do now. I'm gonna go into this matte shade with a MAC 237. I'm not sure if they make this brush anymore. Oh, this is the 137, sorry. So I'll just take a couple taps. This is a very pigmented blush, so I'll tap off whatever is on there. And then, like I said, I'll use this to go towards the center of my face. So a good trick for blush, smile and see where the apples of your cheeks are. Pay attention to that area. Don't smile and then just place that there. And you see how that's just giving you a nice flush. So then we'll go into the other cheek. So now that I have that color on, you can see it's kind of mattified a little bit of the highlighter that I have on, which is good. So I'm gonna use that same brush, the MAC 137, and I'm gonna go into the highlight or the kind of shinier shade, shimmerier shade of this Cover FX. This one isn't as pigmented as the matte side, so I'll start kind of right where we applied that, not all the way through, but then I'll just bring it a little bit kind of towards the cheekbone and that place where we highlighted. And you can see that really gives you a nice sheen. And like I said, I do like a lot of blush. Blush is one of my favorite things, so, you know. I'll just take whatever is left on there and kind of wipe it off a little bit, but then I will go in just my forehead here, just so we have a little bit of continuity, and just a little bit on the end of my nose. I don't know why I do that, I just always have. I think it makes you look a little more sun-kissed. Okay, so now we're going in with a bronzer. I am not the biggest fan of a super matte bronzer, but I think since a lot of us have texture kind of here below the cheek, it's a good, you know, product to use to not highlight or emphasize a texture. So I'm gonna use the Marc Jacobs Tantastic bronzer, and this bronzer is just giant. And I've had this for, I think it's been like 10 months or so, and I've not even made a dent. So, and then I'm gonna go in, what is this? With a MAC 35 brush, or 135 brush. I'm gonna tap in, tap off, and then I like to use my bronzer, first I stamp, and I'll just go start here in the back, and I'll stamp it forward. So I'm just tapping this in kind of a C formation here. So you see how that's just giving you a little bit of definition, but not like contouring crazy. Okay, so now that the kind of cheeks are bronzed, the temples are bronzed, I'm gonna bronze my forehead. So for those of you with larger foreheads, this is my little trick, and this is why I don't like to use shimmery or like a satin bronzer, because I'm using this bronzer to, of course, warm my skin up, but also to create shadow. So I'll go in and I'll start right in the center of my forehead. And I'll bring it down just a little here. So you can see how that kind of creates a little bit of a shadow. You can do the same thing on the sides, and then I'll bring it back down around the temple, because we're just creating, as RuPaul would call it, the beige rainbow. And it's just kind of reducing the appearance of your forehead. For those of you with smaller foreheads, you don't necessarily need to do this, but I have a bigger forehead, so I like to. And then I'll take that just a little bit on my chin, and then just slightly under the nose. And then I like to go from where we started here, angle my brush down, and kind of change the shape of my jaw, kind of round my jaw out. And again, I'm doing this subtly. I don't want to look, you know, super contoured or super glam, because I'm going to work. But if you want to have, you know, super glam work makeup, that's all cool too. And then I'll take whatever is left on my bronzer brush and just take it on my Eve's apple, I like to call it. And I'll just kind of bring in that color so I don't look like just bronzed on my face. Like I've had a little bit of sun. If you want, you can contour your nose a little bit. I'm just gonna take this Luxie brush. This is the Luxie 249. It's a two-sided brush. There's a blender and kind of a flatter brush. I'm gonna take the flat end, tap it off on my hand, and then just use this to contour my nose just a little bit. Okay, so that is face makeup done. We're gonna move on to brows and eyes. For brows, I'm really simple with my brows because I pluck them at a certain shape, and my brows are pretty dense the way they are. So I just go in with a clear brow gel. So this is the Benefit 24-Hour Brow Setter. I have the little one right now. And that's pretty much it. Just trying to make my brows look a similar shape. The rule for brows is they're sisters, not twins. If you can make them look like twins, great. If you can't, I try to just make them look as close as I can. If you want to know how I shape my brows, I can give you a more in-depth tutorial on how to like pluck and shape and kind of guide your brows to a certain shape. So go ahead and leave me a comment if you'd like that. Now we're gonna move to eyes. So for eyes, again, I like to keep things really simple for a work day. I'm going to go back into that Marc Jacobs bronzer. If you don't have a ton of makeup, this is a really great way to use the makeup you have. So I'm gonna use my bronzer as my eyeshadow. So I'm gonna go back into the Marc Jacobs Fantastic Bronzer. I'm gonna go in with just a fluffy blender brush. This is a BH Cosmetics one from many, many moons ago. Tap that in, and I'm gonna concentrate this first on my lid. And I just tap it, and then once I've gotten that pigment on there, I will just kind of go back and forth. And then once you feel like you're getting a good amount of pigment, you can just bring that up into the crease and like that windshield wiper motion just to deposit that pigment. And then you can go in and just kind of do circular motions to bring that up a little bit more towards your brow. And then once you have that blended up, just go in with that same bronzer and just kind of smoke out that bottom lash line. Okay, so that is just the kind of base shadow portion. If you aren't a matte shadow person, you can pop a little bit of shimmer on your lid, which I think I'm gonna do right now. I'm not gonna do anything crazy. I'm gonna take the MAC Naked pigment. I'm just gonna take that on my finger, and I'm just gonna pat first in the center, kind of towards the tear duct, and then just blend that in. So once you have that pigment down, or the kind of sparkle shade, if you wanna add just a little bit more, I just go back in real quick. Next, we can go in with a little bit of liner. So I'm just taking an Urban Decay liner in 0, and I just place this on the kind of edge of my eye. And I bring it in kind of the outer third. So for me, doing the pigment of the liner kind of just at the outer third, I'm gonna smoke it out, and it gives me a little bit more of kind of a cat eye look, which is what I go for. I like to kind of extend that out just a bit. So I'm just gonna take a Wet n Wild angled brush and then just smoke that out a little bit. See how it just kind of elongates that end, makes you look a little more feline. And this is a good technique for those of you who aren't very good at doing like winged liner. I'm not good with a precise wing, so I always smoke it out because it looks a little more smudgy, a little more sexy, and I think it's a little more forgiving. So now that the liner's down, I'm just gonna go in with a matte dark brown shadow with the shade Cupcake from the Gemini palette. I like to just soften down the kind of intensity of the black with a kind of a darker brown, and then you can kind of bring that closer to the corner of your eye just to kind of smoke it out. Kind of smudgy, kind of smoky, doesn't have to be perfect. So now that the eyeliner is on, we'll go in with some mascara. This is the Ilia mascara. I think I rubbed the name off of it, so I don't know what it is, but Ilia is a clean brand. And this mascara is bomb. Okay, so now mascara is on, everything's coming together, and now all we need to do is a lip. So I have larger lips, as many of you can see, so I don't really do a lip liner. I don't really kind of cheat a lip, but I'll show you a little bit on how you can. So I have foundation on my lips right now. So I'm just gonna take my I have a mini makeup eraser, complete soapbox here. Buy a makeup eraser or something like it. There's Makeup Halo, Ulta has their own version of a makeup eraser. You do not need to use single wipes or makeup remover wipes. It's so wasteful, so bad for the environment when you can have a makeup eraser or something like it, like a microfiber towel, and you can use it over and over and over and over and over again and save wipes and packaging and all of that from going into a landfill. Soapbox down. I'm just gonna take that, it's damp, and I'm just gonna wipe my lips off. Okay, so now that those are wiped off, I'll go in with just a little bit of a lip liner. I would go just about the same shade or just slightly darker than your lips if you're trying to cheat a fuller look. So I'll take that and I'll go to the bottom here, and you see where my lip kind of meets the skin, the vermilion border here. I'll just kind of cheat that a little bit. You can see how that side looks more full than this side. So you see it's just slightly darker than my natural lip, but it makes my bottom lip more full looking. And then I'll take my lip liner. I'm not gonna do the whole Cupid's bow area because my lip is naturally flared out, and if I try to cheat that top part of my lip, I just look like a duck. So I'm not gonna do that, but I'll cheat this kind of outer corner here. So the key is don't go too far outside of your lip because then it just looks weird. Okay, and you want to do this with a long wearing lip liner. You don't want anything that's super creamy or super like moisturizing because then that'll wear off throughout the day and then your lips will look kind of odd. Feather this color in so it doesn't look like I just have a line on my lips. And then I'll just take my finger and tap everything in. And if you like this, then you can stop there. If you want a gloss, I'm a gloss person, so I'm gonna go in with a gloss. I'm gonna go in before that with just a little bit of a lighter shade, pink. This is Max Mineral Riche Pure Pout lipstick. So I'm just gonna go in the center of my lips here, just to kind of give a little more of that kind of, so we've contoured on the outside to make our lips look bigger. We're gonna take this lighter color in the center of our lips to make them look more full in the center. I'm gonna go for something glossy and juicy. So I'm gonna get, this is my Buxom Samantha gloss. It's kind of a, you know, peachy, shiny gloss. And again, if you're going for that bigger lip look, you can just pat this right there in the center of your lips. And I always like to go right on my Cupid's bow to kind of highlight that part as well. So I'll take my lip, kind of go like this, and then just slightly pat that again. So you can put gloss all over, I typically do, but I'm just showing you how to cheat a lip a little bit. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really hope those tips and tricks for kind of concealing things and highlighting areas that you like work out for you. If they do, please leave me a comment. If not, please leave me a comment. I'm always learning and growing here. So thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you soon.